Hi, kindergarten, first and second grade leaders. We are preparing for January 13th. And this week, we're going to be looking at Joseph's life continued. Remember last week we introduced the story of Joseph and how Joseph was the favored son of Jacob because he was the firstborn son of Rachel. And all of that favoritism caused his brothers to really hate him and to want to kill him because of a dream he had. And they felt like if they killed him, that dream would never happen, that they wouldn't have to bow down to him and he wouldn't be in charge of everybody else. Well, what man didn't know, God had bigger plans for him. We're going to figure that out this week as we look at how God used Joseph's dream to help prepare Jacob's family to make it through a very severe famine. So your opening social activity is you'll have a sheet like this in your small group. And last week I gave you the wrong instructions. I kind of made up my own instructions. So this week we're going to go off of what it says on the paper. I think it'll be a much easier way to play the game. So what you're going to do is split your group into two groups. If you wanted to do this where you combine with another age group and you guys sit across from each other, you could do it that way too. Totally up to you. I'm going to let you be in control of how that all works. I do think this could be a really fun game for the kids. In fact, I'm trying to remember what it's called on YouTube. I'll have to ask my kids. But there's a game similar that they've played at our house where they drop a sheet and then they run away and like the dog or something else is trying to figure out what happened, like it's a magic trick or something. So you could YouTube that or search that in YouTube and show the kids that before you play your version of the game. So what you're supposed to do is split your group into two teams, and they're going to sit on the floor would be best across from each other. And then you're going to you can use one of your kid helpers or one of your teen helpers to help you spread out the sheet in between the two groups. And what they're going to do while the sheet is pulled up, they're going to pick somebody from their team, and you may want to encourage them to do this quietly. Pick somebody from their team, and then they're going to call out to each other, and each team has to figure out who's on the other side before the sheet drops. And then you can count down after they call each other out, call something out. You could call a category. You could get them before you play this game as people are gathering, get everybody to talk about what some of their favorite things about starting back to school are, maybe their least favorite things about going back to school, what they're looking forward to in the next couple months as they're at school. If they're starting sports soon, different kind of things. If you want to start the conversation so they have something to talk about when they're when they have their thing, they could also just make a noise and somebody has to guess who they are based on the sound of their voice. Totally play that however you think that could work best for your group. All right, and then in your small group time, you are going to have a bag full of cups. And again, you're going to make two teams. Each team is going to get 10 red cups and 1 blue cup. There's a possibility that I did that backwards because I didn't have the right color cups. So it might be that you have 10 blue cups and 2 red cups. You'll notice when you see it, whichever one you have the most of, they will get 10 of that color and 1 of the other color. And then what you're supposed to do is take your 10 cups like this and your blue cup on bottom or on top. And the kids are going to take turns moving the cup from the bottom to the top until the blue cup is all the way to the top again. And it is a relay, so you go back and forth, giving each team the chance to, and you can play this several times if you wanted to. So the instructions on your leader guide are a bit vague, and I'm sorry for that. But as I'm reading through this is kind of the point I would think that you could make from playing this game. Two things, actually. You could remind them that there were some things that had to happen before we could understand what Joseph's dream meant and how God was going to make all of that happen for Joseph. Just like there's not a fast, easy way to do this cup relay. You have to take each step at a time. So you could talk about it from that perspective. You could also talk about it from the perspective of the brothers, and looking at how what the brothers had in mind for Joseph was they didn't want to have to bow down to him, not realizing that God was going to use Joseph as a way to provide for them. And I'm sure that some of them at some point were very thankful that they had Joseph still alive in his role so that they could provide for themselves and their families. So you could talk about it in either way. There's a description there of the story, just to recap what the story is about. Again, I would remind you that many of your kids live a life similar to Joseph as far as family is concerned. And so it's a good opportunity to have some really good discussions with kids. And what I know is, even in the middle of some tough situations in families, and my family has experienced tough situations pretty much my whole life. And I think the thing that I am thankful, looking back on it now, that I knew is that I knew there was a good God orchestrating things, even if I didn't understand the ugly stuff going on around me, or I didn't understand why there was so much rejection in my life. I didn't understand that, and I didn't honestly get to understand that until this last year. And in all of those moments, for me, it has helped me know God's goodness, that God was good all the way through. There were so many times that the bad things could have been what defined me, but thankfully that wasn't what defined me, and it's not what defines me today. Probably the reason you haven't heard me talk about it is because I don't think that's my story. I think my story is that God is a good God who has protected me, has protected my children, continues to build relationships with people all around us, and God's going to continue to make his plans and purposes happen, even though us people are going to make mistakes and we're going to make bad choices. God is good, and God can do anything if it is according to his plan and his purpose. All right, so your memory verse activity, you have a paper like this in your folder. And this is the same activity for the entire series. And on your leader guide, it'll tell you that it's called Crazy Stand-Ups. On this one, it says Stand Up. It's all the exact same thing. You play it the exact same way. So what you're going to do is call out a couple categories, and kids who have a goat are going to stand up. You know, it's fair season. Maybe they're getting ready to raise their animal, or got a new animal over Christmas break. And so they're going to stand up, and those kids who have a goat will say the memory verse. They've had it for a couple weeks now between Sunday morning and Wednesday night, so there may be a couple kids who can really say it from memory. I encourage you to get them to say it from memory as quickly as they can, but there's also posters up on the wall that they can read it from there. And then you can pray and make sure to connect with families as they're coming to pick up their kids. I want to invite you guys to come to our leader huddle on January 27th. We will have the best lunch in town. I promise you. I'm not making this up. Vita makes an amazing meal for us, and I don't think we've had the same thing twice. And so it's really, really good food. You don't want to miss it. It's free. There's free childcare and food for your kids. We'll have activities for them to do while we are having our meeting time. And our meeting time this time is going to be a bunch of games with some prizes so that we can go over some policies and procedures that we need to make sure everybody's on the same page about to help continue to build safe, welcoming environments. I'm not telling you you shouldn't hear anything new. I just want to make sure that everybody hears the exact same things at the exact same time. Let me know you're coming, and thank you so much for leading.